Hey,
Hey,
how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are
Well,
you?
welcome back to the studios.
That's great to be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think last time you were here.
Whew.
It's not as far back as Belonging Conference, is it? We've done it. You've
Yeah,
been here since
I've been here
then,
since.
a couple of videos and things.
Yeah, so Belonging Conference was end of 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
I was here some point last year. So yeah,
Yeah.
might be a year though. Might be getting on.
It all
for you.
merges into one now.
It does,
So-
yeah. But it's good to be back anyway.
Great. Yeah, it's good to see you.
you.
So we'd organised some training with you, some live training rather than videos with the Business Improvement District.
That's
and
right,
we were looking at some inclusivity training.
Yes.
But we had no take up at all
I
with
know.
visitors.
It was really disappointing because we've got some exciting things to share with people about the importance of inclusion, particularly disability inclusion, and it was really looking forward to coming in and meeting up with folk.
I just think about that quite a bit because we do a lot of training on various different things, and there's some take up of everything, but there was nothing here, and I started to think, well, unless you've got some personal experience of inclusivity issues, or something's happened to you because you haven't been doing something or whatever, then it's probably not on your radar at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think most places where you see things going really well, it's because there's that personal connection. Either somebody themselves or a family member has a disability or additional needs, and so they're tuned into it, is on their radar, or it's because something has gone wrong and they've had a bit of a slap and suddenly they think, we need to do better at this.
And that'll come down to the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah, exactly.
It just gives us a little bit of an overview.
So the Equality Act 2010 brings together a whole bunch of legislation that was in place before that into one unified piece of legislation that protects 9 different protected characteristics of which disability is one. And there's others, including sort of gender and sexual orientation and race and ethnicity and all that sort of thing. But disability is one. There's 9 of them, and it protects people from direct and indirect discrimination in a wide range of environments, in the workplace, in society. If we're going into a shop or a pub or a cinema or somewhere, then it protects us there. If we're buying or renting a property, if we're in education, there's a whole range of places. Most of the things we do, we're protected by the Equality Act in some way.
Okay. So we're looking at disability in particular of that Equality Act, and we've shot 4 videos today.
Yes.
As an alternative to getting people into the space, just so I think it's important that we as an organisation, we push these things as much as possible within our local communities. So that's what today has been about.
Yes.
And you'd be very kindly come up and said you would do that.
Nice. Good to do
so
it.
we split it up into 4 areas. Do you want to just give us an overview of those 4 sort of videos?
Yeah, so we've started off by sort of looking at the state of the nation, the big picture for what it looks like for people with disability and maybe their families as well in the UK in 2020. What does that look like? And the statistics that come around that, but also some of the sort of the hard things that we know are going on in society for folk with disability. So that was section 1. Section 2 starts to unpack some of the terminology that can be so confusing. So additional needs, special needs, disability, impairment, inclusion, accessibility, a whole bunch of things that they all sort of float around there, but what do they actually mean and how do they tie together? And then how does that all come together within the Equality Act 2010? And what are the different requirements of the Act for anybody that's running something, whether it's an event or a business or school or whatever that might be, a church, direct discrimination, different forms of that, indirect discrimination, things like reasonable adjustments. What are the things that we can and are required to put in place to include people more effectively? So we looked at all of that in that 3rd section. Then finally, we looked at a sort of a 5 things we can do to make sure that we are staying compliant or achieving beyond compliance, because keeping to the law is great. We all need to do that, but really we want to go beyond that and make sure that we're going the extra mile for all the people that we're engaging with. And so, looking at how we do that was the final fourth part of the puzzle there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So we sort of 10 years down the line since that act brought all those various areas together and looked at it. Why is it important for businesses to look at it? What's the worst case scenario if they don't?
It's 10 years, and so that in of itself means that excuses are thin on the ground for not being aware of it and putting things in place. As I mentioned, there's 9 different protected characteristics in there. Disability is just one, and all of them are areas where businesses should be really aware of the need to be inclusive and provide access to what they're doing. In the event of it going wrong, then the full force of the law can be brought to bear and has been brought to bear. And there are all number of cases. There's certainly been some high profile ones around particularly things like LGBT inclusion, for example, and where that's not worked as well as it should, and organisations have been sued. But it comes in lots of different ways. The Scouts were sued a couple of years ago for excluding a young autistic lad from one of their groups, and so it sort of reaches into all areas of what we do, and you're talking about tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds potentially in fines, plus the bad publicity that goes alongside that. The Scouts were plastered all over all the press and even made it onto the 6 o'clock news and all that sort of thing. Nobody wants that kind of publicity going on.
No.
And, but also, all that aside, is that really how we want to treat people?
Well, I was just thinking this, because this is a legal process.
Yeah.
It's a law that comes into action, which basically just supports things that surely we should be doing anyway.
Exactly. We should be doing this stuff anyway. It gives us a framework to achieve and maybe exceed. And yes, in legal terms, there are penalties if we don't do the achieving bit. But yeah, really, we should be making sure that what we do works for everybody, is accessible and inclusive for everybody, and that should be foremost in our thinking when we're whatever we're doing, whether an event or something we're selling or whatever it is we're doing, we should be thinking about how do we make sure that this doesn't exclude anybody and that everybody can participate and be a part of what we're doing.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thought. We live in changing political times.
Yes, absolutely.
Where, there's a case today where somebody coming back into the country, some lad who's lived here since he was 14, is in Belgium, coming back to the country, and suddenly told that his passport no longer is valid.
Yeah.
And he's not being allowed into the country.
Yeah, really hard.
I came as a 14-year-old and lived here ever since.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. I don't understand this, but that comes under the Equality Acts, doesn't it, of race, etc.
It's then, because we're in such politically fluid times, legislation is almost having to sort of catch up with what's happening. So the Equality Act's been around for 10 years. It provides protection that in many cases has mirrored what's provided across the rest of the European Union. There was alignment with a lot of that stuff going forward, but now we're in a transition period. Some things are supposed to be continuing as normal.
More is going to be looked at, isn't it?
Until we get to the end of the year, and then who knows? But there are people that are falling through the gaps there. And it's real lives, real people that are being affected, and yes, the legal framework will catch up with where those gaps exist and deal with that. But none of this happens in an instant. It doesn't happen when there's a young lad in Belgium trying to travel and now can't.
Now homeless.
And now homeless, stateless.
Stateless.
What happens then? It's complex times that we're in, and I think it. Perhaps that's an example of all sorts of issues that are to come. I know within the disability space, there's all sorts of protections and things that were in place, you know, around sort of travelling in Europe and all sorts of things that, they are now. Do they exist? Are they there anymore? Can you rely on them? You know, does your European health card work? You know, that's a big issue for somebody with a disability. If they think that they can travel with that, but then need to use a hospital or something and get told no, sorry, you've got to pay.
It's not valid anymore. It's not,
you know, so lots of questions, and you know, not all the answers are there yet.
No, it's interesting times. All we can say is watch this space, I guess.
Well, I think it is,
and keep aware of it.
Yeah,
be
you know, being aware, being vigilant, really, and particularly if this is something that you know really is a crucial factor for you. You know, if you are disabled, going to travel, you know, all that sort of thing, to really research thoroughly and make sure that you're well prepared and you know what the implications are if it goes wrong. Because we are in rather fluid times.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thanks for coming in, Mark.
Oh, thanks.
Always good to chat with you.
Yeah, great to be here, Pete.
I think we should go and have some lunch.
Sounds like a plan.
Somebody mentioned pie.
There was mention of pie. It's going to be very disappointing if
It's
there's
not
no
available.
pie.
We'll search up pie. We'll be in search of pie. Thank you very much.
Thanks, mate.
I'll see you soon.